What is the proper tire pressure for my trailer tires? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover several different things concerning max air pressure, minimum air pressure, everything in between. We're going to talk about some comments and questions that we've seen on the channel and just some of our average daily customers. So stick with us. Let's see if we can learn something today, and let's get right to it. So we got a couple of great questions. One of the most popular questions is this: what determines, or who determines, how much or how little air pressure I can put in my trailer tire? Well, at the end of the day, you determine. You are the owner of the tire, you're the owner of the trailer. You are going to determine how much air you put in it or how much air you don't put in it. It's really on you. I know that there's some people that like to air down, people like to air up. We're going to cover that. Once you leave with the trailer, once you've purchased it, it's your baby. So make sure you've done your homework, make sure you've done your research, make sure you're doing what's correct. Something else that determines air pressure, talking about max air pressure, the first thing that's going to determine that is the wheel. So this wheel is limited to a certain amount of max air pressure. This wheel here is an 80 PSI maximum air pressure wheel. How do you know that? Many times it's stamped on the wheel. If you have a wheel and you cannot find that anywhere, you're going to have to try to figure out the manufacturer of that. You may have to contact them, do an internet search to find out what series of wheel this is. This here is an 8-lug. I could bring another 8-lug wheel that looks identical to this that's rated for a 110 PSI, but those two wheels, even though they look identical, are different. They're going to have a different valve stem in them. They're going to have a heavier PSI valve stem. They're also going to be made of a thicker material on the wheel itself. So the wheel honestly determines the max air pressure that you can put. Now, what if you put a tire that's got a below max air pressure of the wheel? Then you're at another conundrum there. Then the tire is going to determine it. Well, what if my tire has an air pressure higher than the wheel? Then the wheel determines it. So that's really it. They have to match. So if your tire is rated for more than the wheel, you cannot go above the wheel. If your wheel is rated above the tire, then you can put the tire at what the tire recommends. So those things you really should focus on the correct air pressure. Look at the tire pressure that's on the tire. Look at what the wheel is rated for. There's also something else that would determine that, and that's going to be your data tag that's stated from the trailer manufacturer. It could be different than what's on here. It's never going to be higher. If the manufacturer's recommended air pressure on the trailer is a higher PSI than what the max air pressure is on the tire, then it's got the wrong tires or the wrong wheels on it, and you're going to need to take that up with your manufacturer. They may have put the wrong ones on it. I'm going to show you the tire ID tag that's on the trailer that's going to give you a recommended PSI, and we'll see what this trailer is rated for. So we're going to switch the camera around to there, and we'll take a look. So here we have our tire and loading information tag that should be on any new trailer. This trailer is running a 225/75/15E rated tire, and it says on here 80 PSI for the maximum. If you were to go back and look at the tire, it also says 80 PSI maximum. The wheel is an 80 PSI maximum. So this trailer is not underrating the tire, and they're not overrating the tire. What the manufacturer here is stating is run the tire at max air pressure, which is going to bring us to a couple of more questions here. So let's jump back over here and look at our tire, but check this out. If you have this on your trailer, has some good information. You also have this on your automobiles, and that's where you'll notice some differences. If you look on your automobile, many times the recommended tire pressure on your automobile will be less than the max air pressure of the tire, because depending on what tire setup they have per vehicle, just like if you have a 3/4 ton pickup or a 1/2 ton pickup or a 1 ton pickup, many times you'll run more PSI on the rear tires than you do the front, just to allow for a loading of that bed, or if you're towing a trailer. So let's jump back over here and look at this tire and answer a few more questions. So you notice here we have an empty trailer. There's no type of equipment on here. It is ready for equipment or whatever you may load on it. And here comes the question. We have several people that ask, can I air my tires down? The short answer to that, in my opinion, is no. This is where it's going to stir some of y'all up. I'm sure we're going to get some comments on that, but that's fine. We probably won't agree or get along. I'm going to tell you my reasoning behind it. Do your own research on that. Technically, on this trailer unloaded, you could air the tire down. The only reason you would want to do that is for a little more of a cush ride, smoother ride, because a trailer like this pulling empty is going to be bouncy. These tires, you have 4 of them at 80 PSI. The suspension is brand new. This trailer, you're gonna know what's back there going on the road. If you live in our area, our roads are horrible on there. We have a lot of traffic. They have a lot of cracking in the roads, and you're just bumping up and down all the time. So yes, you could lower the air pressure out of this, and it would give you a more cush ride. The tire manufacturers, for the most part, are not going to recommend that. There are some new ST tire manufacturers out there that do have an air down rating. Those charts are hard to find. If you can find that, more power to you. And again, remember, it's your decision. This is just my opinion and my decision. The problem with airing down, 2 things. You could have abnormal wear on the tire, but the biggest thing is if you're pulling your trailer around unloaded all the time, there's really no reason to be pulling a trailer around. Trailers are really made to be loaded, but I understand if you're taking a piece of equipment somewhere or going to get in material to drop it off, or maybe you're a long haul hot shotter and you're going to drop something, you're having a dead head back, you're going to be unloaded. So I get it. You could air down to give you a smoother ride. Here's the problem. How many of you are going to air back up or remember to air back up once you get to your load or put a load on it? Most people are. I'm not going to. I can tell you right now, I would be the first to forget. So I'm just going to deal with the bumps, or if I'm pulling a trailer around so often unloaded, I'm going to look at why am I pulling a trailer around unloaded. I'm going to put a load on it. Something else that could cause that bounce is a tire that's not balanced. That's a whole other video we'll get into, and we've touched on this before. So my answer to that is, can I air down my trailer tire? I'm going to say no. And for the RV community, the travel trailer community, the cargo trailer community, guys that keep their equipment on, maybe this has some type of industrial equipment on it, you don't want to air that down. You have to keep that at max PSI so you get max weight capacity, because that's what you're really doing. When you lower the PSI of that tire, you're decreasing the max capacity of the load, the cargo, the payload that you can put on the trailer. Here's really what prompted this video. We were about 110 here last week. We're supposed to be in the 80s for the highs next week, upper 60s for the lows. Here's the problem with that. When you go from 110 daytime highs down to 80 daytime highs, you're going to do one thing. You're going to lose air pressure in your tire. So you're going to have to start checking them this time of the year where we live. If you live up north where maybe you've already got some cool weather, hopefully you have some cool weather, you lose air pressure the colder it gets. Just like the hotter the tire gets, you'll build a little pressure. So you need to be checking those tires. You really need to check them every time you tow. And I know everybody is going to check your tire pressure and check the lug nuts every time you tow, right? Raise your hand if you're going to do that. I doubt it, but you need to, I need to, we all need to. So my opinion, do not air down your tires. If it's bumpy, deal with it. Try not to go unloaded. It just is what it is, because you're not going to remember to air them up, or you're going to get loaded and say, man, I forgot, I'm not going to have an air compressor available. If you have one of them little cheap plug-ins like I carry around with me in the truck that you put it in the cigarette lighter, it'd probably take you 4 days to get these things aired back up. Yes, it will make it smoother, but it's probably going to cost you some money and some headache and some grief. So max air pressure of the tire, or what the trailer manufacturer recommends. If you're running a travel trailer, if you're running a cargo trailer and it says on there 65 PSI on the trailer and your tire is at 70 or 80 PSI max, run what the trailer says. There's a reason behind that. They put that on there, that's fine. But 9 times out of 10 in the trailer world, they're gonna recommend max air pressure. A lot of the bigger tire stores, if you roll in there with an ST tire and you have it changed out and you say, hey, will you put 10 less in there? They're probably going to tell you, no, we're going to put the max air pressure in there. And then the other argument, well, once it gets heated up, is it going to build pressure? Absolutely, it's going to build pressure. That tire the engineers have thought about that. They've made an allowance for that in there to accommodate that. Then when it cools back off the next night, you'll still be at or close to your max air pressure. So keep your tires aired up, what the manufacturer recommends, either on the tire, on the trailer, or both. But in the trailer world, most of them are going to match. It's going to say if it's 80, it's going to be 80. If it's 110, it's going to be 110. We have tires that come in there all the time that are 16 ply, 18 ply tires that are 110 PSI tires. Some bigger than that, they'll have 40 pounds in here. They look pretty good unloaded. They're standing up. There's no squish. If you were to load a piece of equipment on there, they're going to squish. What that's also going to cause is improper heating of the tire, improper tire wear. It's just going to cause you a lot of heartache. It's not that hard just to go out and check your air pressure. I mean, get you one of these. They make some with little dials that you can put in your glove box. As long as it works, you don't have to buy an expensive one. Buy you a cheap one. They have them usually on the counter at the parts store. You can use something like this as a remote if you're scared about the tire blowing up, or if you have a tire that's hard to get to. We use this for our tractor for the inside valve stems on it. It's the only way you can reach them. It's got a gauge built in. This is a little pricey. Probably not going to buy one of those. Buy this or something a little smaller to check your air pressure. So what determines air pressure? You determine air pressure. If you're going to be on here and say, hey, I air down because that's what I do, and my great-grandfather aired down his wagon wheels, then go for it, brother. Air down all day long. Run 5 PSI in there if that's what suits you. But make sure you're okay with it. Make sure you can sleep at night, and make sure everybody else on the roadway is going to be safe. I'm just going to deal with the bounce. I'm going to keep my 80 PSI on my tires. If it says 80, I'm going to keep 110 in there. If it says 110, I know that's a lot, but that's what's recommended. That's what the tire was engineered to do. That's what the trailer was engineered to do, to haul, so you can get your max load. Imagine if you take an 80 PSI tire and put 50 PSI on it, whether on purpose or through neglect, how much you've cut down your load capacity. Just figure the math on that. If you've got half air pressure or a third air pressure, you've got possibly a half load capacity or a third load capacity. So you could get yourself in a bind, have a blowout. If you live in a hot state right now, there is rubber all up and down the roads. Most of that is not due from proper tire maintenance, proper loading. Usually, in my opinion, and from my experience, that's usually due to improper inflation, worn out tires, or cheap tires. Before y'all guys beat me up on this being a cheap China-made tire, I picked this tire out specifically because it was the closest to this trailer and I didn't have to go to the tire barn. We're not going to get into the whole China, USA made. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you got the money and the want to, go out and buy a USA tire. If you can't, just buy the China tire and put your USA air in there. Just make sure the USA air you're putting in there through your USA air compressor, your USA hose, and all of your stuff, make sure it's at the proper PSI. If you don't live in the US, then you're not going to go by PSI. You're going to go through a different measurement, whatever your country is, and you're going to know that. I have no clue. We're a Fahrenheit country here. Don't know all the particulars on that. Not going to cover that. Just do your homework. Do your research. After you watch this video, go do a search on it. Do an internet search. Look at maybe your tire manufacturer. See what they say. Today we're talking about ST tires, specialty trailer tires. What we're talking about. Not talking about LT, passenger car, none of that. We'll get y'all stirred up on that on a different day. But today we're going to try to stay calm and just talk about PSI. But tire pressure and lug nuts is super important. It's just going to keep you going to where you're going and not have a breakdown, and not, if this tire blows out, what's it going to tear up? Could tear your fender off, could tear up all your wiring, it could come off and tear up somebody's car, and your insurance have to cover it. So remember, who is responsible for proper tire pressure? I am. You are. Get you an air gauge and check it. After you check the tire pressure, check the lug nuts. We will see you next time.